Sidecar crews, we can start off with last year's winners, of course, number one in your programme. It is, of course, Alan and John Blewitt. Well, indeed, I think Donna's taken a life in her hands going past all this lot, but we'll go through them slowly because you're now meeting the Sidecar boys. And here, into the programme comes number 2, Steve Smith and Keith Wall. They will, of course, we move to number 3 in your programme. They travelled all the way from Australia. They are the Australian champions. It's Gary Moon and Steve Robbins. That's the Australian champions. We now, of course, move through somebody who we all think is our true champion, Steve Dewison and Dave Ward. A lot of support for the next crew. It is crew number 5 this afternoon. It is, of course, Roger Measor and Steve Bailey. In very determined form, winners of no less than 7 nationals this year, Russell Ing and Paul Urycz. Making a truly international class, another man that's travelled all the way from Australia. It is, of course, crew number 7 this afternoon. They also have had Australian championships. It's Darrin, Treloar and Phil Hudson. Oh, we're more used to perhaps to seeing the next crew on the speedway circuits, but they're here again. They've won the aces before. It's Paul Pinfold and Peter Jones. No comments at all about the Mac there. Crew number 9, they've come into the programme this afternoon in place of Richard Piggott. It is, of course, Martin Bailey and Shane Cann. I'm not repeating any of these comments that Donna's getting as he goes through. The next crew is Rob Cameron and Steve Smith. Well, I was guessing that he might do something. It might get worse, Donna, as we go to the end of this line. But the next crew, number 11, John Halsey and Chris Skipper. Outfit number 12, the youngsters, Nevill Penfold and Tony Miles. Looking very professionally kitted out, Rob Wilson and Vince Jones. Crew number 15, it's Jerry Adams and Shaun Pittock. Crew number 16, another young crew that really have made their name in the national scene. It's Ivor and Mike Dowse. Number 17, we've met Rob Cameron. We now meet the father. It is, of course, Mike Cameron and Paul Randall. He's got that magic touch. Number 18, it's the local crew of John Hiscock and Shane Lapham. Crew 19, all the way down from the Midlands with a replacement passenger, Gary Jackson and Matthew from Roller. Moving into our reserve crews, it's crew number 20, that is, of course, Pete Dyer and Tony Bemister. And last but no means least, the other reserve crew, Len and Ray Foreman. And Donna, there's one more thing I've got to ask you to do right at the end of the line here. 2 of our international marshals. Meet Pat, meet Terry. Well, indeed, you've now seen the complete lineup of riders. Ian, I believe you wanted a few words.
Yes, just to remind all sidecar drivers and solo drivers that on the start tapes we are adopting the international rule that once the green light comes on, touching the start tapes means exclusion. And we don't mean to give you a second chance. Touch them once, out, no questions asked.
Thanks, Clive. good news, I'm sure, for a lot of supporters to hear that Trevor Banks is in great form. Of course, he has got a good record at the Ace of Aces. 1986 was when he took the title. He's been second in 89 and second in 87. So yes, always competitive, and good to hear that he's going well. A great way to start the day. We now move into the sidecars, of course, the first time, and indeed the first race of the sidecar competition. And what a lineup we've got. Marty Baker, of course, comes in place of Richard Biggett, riding number 9. Marty Baker and Shane Cann. The rest of the lineup: Rob Cameron, Mike Cameron, Ivor Matthews, Gary Moon and Steve Dewison. We get underway, and as you can see on the far side, we've got Marty Baker slotting into second place, but it is in the lead Rob Cameron at the moment. Ivor Matthews looking to go around the outside and on that first bend. Gary Moon drops in behind Ivor Matthews and follows him around that top bend. It is Rob Cameron and Smith the lead at the moment. As I say that, it is just at the moment because Ivor Matthews has got right on the outside of their sidecar, pushing hard into that pit bend. As we go down the back straight again, we look for Gary Moon to make a move. Steve Dewison at the back at the moment moves through into 5th place. Moving up, Hudson come out off that top bend. Rob Cameron in first bit. Really in control at the moment. They lead as they come past us for the second time. Ivor Matthews right up there trying the inside line this time. Gary Moon now under pressure from Steve Dewison, and Dewison starts to move through on the inside of Gary Moon. Those two together in 3rd place as you go into the top bend for the 3rd time. We look for Rob Cameron again to come past us, leading this field, and a very competitive field it is. All Alpines still together at the front. Any one of those 4 could take this first heat of the sidecars. Ivor Matthews again tries to go around the outside on that pit bend, and this time he's up the back straight and he's got the edge going into that top corner. He'll try and cut back across the racing line, but he's not enough room. Driving hard out of that top bend, and Rob Cameron's going to get it on the line, I don't know. Well, that was close to the line. We'll look for our line judges on that one because the front wheels were together as they come across the line. A great effort from Ivor Matthews on a tremendous way to start the sidecar competition. It's 10, 16, 3, 4 and 9. The winning time 1:25.70. Oh, a tremendous way to start the sidecar competition. If we look to race 6, it's the second of the sidecars. Gary Moon has been out for the Australians. Darrin Treloar now comes out in race 6. Oh, we look to see how he can do against a field of Jerry Adams, Gary Jackson, Rob Wilson, Roger Measor and Paul Pinfold. So different types of machinery out there again. Roger Measor on the new machine, he tells us he's very happy with it. He said it's handling brilliantly, the engine sounds perfect, and indeed we look to see how well he's going to go. Rob Wilson has had a very good season this year, looking determined to try and get himself on the rostrum at this year's Aces. Gary Jackson, of course, problems yesterday in practice. He spun round, was with Kevin Williams at that time. Kevin unfortunately spun off the back of the bike and picked up an injury to his hand. Means he couldn't take part, but a very confident passenger has stepped in. That, of course, is Matthew Fumarola. He rides for Gary Jackson. And Paul Pinfold with a new passenger for today. Very experienced passenger, Peter Jones.
Oh, no, not
So, race 6, we look to see them leave the gate. Of course, a lot of pressure on these starts for the sidecars. Darrin Treloar has made a good start as he goes down that back straight. It is Treloar that gets to that corner with Rob Wilson on the outside of him as they come round off that first bend. Looking for Treloar, coming down this finishing straight. Rob Wilson still right there with him, right on the outside of his sidecar. Gary Jackson's up into 3rd, Jerry Adams up into 4th, Roger Measor right on the back wheel of Jerry Adams and moves around the outside of him now into 4th place. So Roger with a disastrous start, equally Paul Pinfold a disastrous start, but Darrin Treloar has got away from them. He comes round off that top corner, leading from Robbie Wilson in 7th place, Gary Jackson in 3rd, now comes under pressure from Roger Measor. Measor closes right up to the back wheel of Gary Jackson. It's that 3rd place that we're watching as they go down that back straight. Jackson starting to close up on Robbie Wilson in second. It's allowed Darrin, Treloar and Phil Hudson to get away from him. And it is Treloar coming fast up to take that last lap. On that top end, that's a disastrous start to the day for Roger as he coasts across the line. It means that now Paul Pinfold has been elevated up one place, for as we watch that far side, it is the Australians, Darrin Treloar, of course, and Phil Hudson. They've come round to take their first win of the afternoon, followed by Mick Jones, Gary Jackson and Matt Fumarola. Jerry Adams finishing in 4th spot. After race 7 for that. Paul, of course, having a brilliant start to the day. That's going to come after race 7, if you can bear with us in the pits, Clive, and indeed we look for race 7 to come to the line. It's John Hiscock.
All I can say is, obviously Craig was on the same line, he wanted the same line. That's where it was, the racing line, and just had to make a little bit of to get it to lead it.
There, Clive. Great to hear from Paul Bryan, indeed going well, but we're underway with race 7 as we go down that back straight. It is Rustling and Paul Urycz that lead down that back straight, as indeed they did from that start line. Nevill Penfold right up there in second place. He's looking very, very quickly here. Right behind Paul Urycz and Rustling, of course, leading from Nevill Penfold. Steve Smith, 3rd place at the moment. John Halsey closing up on Steve Smith for that 3rd place. Tony Miles looking over his shoulder. That, of course, is the passenger of Nevill Penfold in 2nd place. Looking for a first heat win, Rustling and Paul Urycz under pressure from Nevill Penfold, but still keeping the edge on them as they go down that back straight. Steve Smith getting away from John Halsey. Disappointing to see Alan and John right at the back of the field. To make up for that. Next time out, the checkered flag going for Rustling and Paul Urycz. Nevill Penfold and Tony Miles take 2nd. Steve Smith and Keith Ward in 3rd place. All these crews know that, of course, it's so vitally important to score well in these early heats. Rustling, obviously, the one most pleased at the moment with that win first time out. He's got the far side of the start gate this time and looks to have made a good one. As he leaves that start gate, he's already got a bike's length on the rest of the field as they go down that back straight and into that first corner. John Hiscock up in 2nd at the moment. I imagine he's got close to in 2nd place. A great first corner from Ivor to get himself up into 2nd. Steve Smith has followed him through as the gap was left by John Hiscock. Steve Smith has now moved through into 3rd place. Steve Dewison trying to move up as well. Again, Steve Dewison has missed the start, but John Hiscock goes back round the outside of Steve Dewison, back in that 4th place at the moment. Right out in front once again. Under pressure now from Ivor Matthews and Mike Dowse. Gap then back into that 3rd place battle where Steve Smith is battling it out with Steve Dewison in 4th place. You look to see at the back of the field there, Rob Wilson having a disappointing 2nd ride, finding out now with John Hiscock. He's in 2nd place, and looks to the front, it's Rustling and Paul Urycz. Now they said last night that their biggest problem was going to be on what tyres to use. It looks as if they've made the right decision, because that motor is driving all the way down that back straight, but Ivor Matthews closes up on them going up that hill and into the top corner. For the last time, it's going to be the checkered flag this time as they come round. Rustling and Paul Urycz looking on top. They come across the line and take their 2nd checkered flag of the afternoon. Ivor Matthews and Mike Dowse in 2nd. Steve Dewison's won that battle for 3rd place. Steve Smith then in 4th. 6, 16, 4, 2, 14, 18, the winning time 1:25.20.
You know, Jim, I said we get some very funny little messages pop into us. We've got one about the Speedway Star Grasstrack and Speedway show that I mentioned, and in fact we've got the date now, the 1st of March 1992 up at Coventry. And it says that Ken Lane, Simon Wigg, Jeremy Doncaster, Joe Screen, Andy Smith are all likely to be there. And there is a sponsored body paint in aid of Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital. Jill Lane has promised £10 for the first go at Ken, and Steve Dewison £5 for a second go. Tickets minimum 50p enables you to colour in the rider of your choice. It says loincloths will be worn. I'm not sure how serious we should take this, but it obviously looks like we all need to go along on the 1st of March to see if it's all going to happen up there.
Well, indeed, that is the show next year. The date now fixed. That's one we can put in our diary for the 1st of March next year. But as we look to the Ace of Aces for 1991, we've got race 13 on the line. Again, we've got a winner from the first round. Darrin Treloar had a win first time out. He's pulled it in the air, though, and had problems on the start line, allowing Alan and John Blewitt to go through into the front. So this is a much better performance from Alan and John Blewitt. They've not missed the start this time. Gary Moon is up in the third, and Gary Moon is going right round the outside of Roger Measor. Again, Roger's been hit with problems as he puts his arm in the air going into that pit bend. A great shame this to see Roger Measor with that new outfit that he thought he was happy with, pulling out again, and look at Gary Moon going through on the inside of Alan and John Blewitt. Off the top corner there, the Australian champion Gary Moon with passenger Steve Robbins. Darrin Treloar also trying to get through the inside of Alan and John Blewitt, but Blewitt still have that second place at the moment. It's getting close for that second place though, as Darrin Treloar again goes underneath and tries to get through on the inside. That's exactly where Gary Moon went through, into that top end. Now we've got first and second for the Australians. Gary Moon comes round and takes the last lap flag. A much better ride from him this time out. Darrin Treloar not equaling his first time place of the first time out, and indeed now holding second to Alan and John Blewitt after that great start and back in third place, working as always so very hard to keep that outfit driving. As we come off that top end, it's going to be the first win of the afternoon for the Australian champions Gary Moon and Steve Robbins. Darrin Treloar takes second, Alan and John Blewitt takes third, and Martin Baker crosses the line for fourth place. Over the page we go, or indeed pages, as we go past that fabulous photograph that's in the centre of the programme of last year's Aces. Very muddy and wet conditions it was, but Jeremy Doncaster, Clayton Williams and Marcel Gerhard last year. And over the page there's more photographs indeed of the sidecar crews. Gary Moon and Paul Norton there, of course. Paul had to go back to Australia. It meant that Steve Robbins has stepped in to ride passenger this afternoon for Gary Moon. Roger Measor and Steve Bailey, nothing but problems for them this afternoon at the moment, and disappointing I'm sure to a lot of the crowd that are here this afternoon, but we keep our fingers crossed that they'll come back at us later on in the afternoon. Race 14 then, as we look through the lineup. Rob Cameron, the other one of our winners from the first leg, he goes in this one. Indeed, looking to see, it's only Russelling and Paul Urycz that have kept their unbeaten record so far. Darrin Treloar, of course, was the other first round winner. He got second time out. So Rob Cameron and Steve Smith, all eyes perhaps on them, but Paul Pinfold looking to make up for a disastrous first ride. As we look across that far side, it is Cameron that's made the best of the start. Cameron is going into that first corner. Nevill Penfold again is right up there with Rob Cameron, round the outside. Pinfold going after Rob Cameron, going into that pit bend as Rob Cameron tries to hold it tight. Pinfold's right on his back wheel. Nevill Penfold and Tony Miles again have gone wide, but they look very, very quick as they've gone all the way around the outside. A great effort from Nevill Penfold. Paul again comes through on the inside. Nevill Penfold again leads forward wide. Now allows Mike Cameron to come through on the inside, but Cameron follows his son Rob Cameron in front. Rob Cameron and Steve Smith lead. Paul Pinfold is still there in second place, but Mike Cameron and Paul Randall are holding third and pushing hard for that second. Nevill Penfold and Tony Miles making a point to go that wide line on the top end. Comes on the inside of again. Nevill Penfold goes wide. I wonder if again they've got problems with the tyres that they've chosen to use. And indeed they go very, very wide past us, and Gary Jackson starts to get close to them. We look to the front. I said it was Russelling that had kept the maximum so far. It looks like Rob Cameron and Steve exactly the same. They come through and they get a win, and Mike Cameron there from Nevill Penfold to get in 4th place. As the crews make their way over to that start gate, I'm quite pleased to see that although the official warnings were that the tape would be out, as yet, I hope I haven't put the mockers on it at all, but we haven't seen anybody touch those tapes to date, so some excellent clean starts. We did hear from Clive that Alan Blewitt totally missed the start in his first ride, but made it sound as if that was just human error, not any error of the start procedure, but we're ready to go for race 19 as they all come to line. Indeed, another clean start. Gary Moon has made a brilliant start from the centre of that start line. Mike Cameron has gone after him into that first bend. Gary Moon it was that made the best of that start from the centre of the starting line. Haven't noticed any particular areas on that start line being any more advantageous than anywhere else. We've seen some good starts from the centre, we've seen some good starts from the outside as well. So watch it once again. Indeed, you can see that time there was a problem with the start gate. It didn't seem to go. That looked a much cleaner start, and Alan and John Blewitt made the best of it. Gary Moon has started into 2nd place. Steve Smith up into 3rd at the moment as they go into that first bit. The Blewitt manages to hang on to it. Gary Moon again tries to go through on the inside of Alan Blewitt and squeezes through a gap that almost wasn't there. Gary Moon then up to the front. Alan and John Blewitt now back in 2nd. Steve Smith getting closer to Alan Blewitt as they start to close up going into that top bend. Gary Jackson is in. Mike Cameron with a brilliant into that top corner. Now as he starts to close down on Steve Smith, but Gary Moon is really starting to get away from the rest of the field. He's opened up an enormous gap between him and Alan Blewitt, and problems for Steve Smith and Keith Wall. They pulled off into the centre of the circuit indeed. That means that Mike Cameron has now moved up into 3rd place. One more lap to go. You might remember that Gary Moon won his 2nd ride, wasn't too happy with his first ride. He only finished in 3rd place, but he's got a second time out. This is the 3rd time. And indeed, as Gary Moon goes round that top corner, the checkered flag is prepared for him. So he's 2nd of the afternoon, and indeed looking to make sure of a place in that final. Hiscock is working very, very hard on the back of it there. Alan and John Blewitt take 2nd. Mike Cameron takes 3rd. Gary Jackson is 4th. And John Hiscock crossing the line in 5th place. Numbers again, race 19, 3, 1, 17, 19, 18, and the winning time, 1:23.99. Over the page we go, and already the riders are making their way to that start line. This time we see Jerry Adams, Rob Wilson, Steve Dewison, Roger Measor, Russelling and Ivor Matthews. To date, Russelling of course on a maximum, 2 wins for him so far. Ivor Matthews, 2 2nd places. Steve Dewison looking to make up on that disappointing first ride. He picked up a 4th, the 2nd time out he got a 3rd place, so I'm sure there's been some frantic work going on, sorting out whatever they feel the problem was, gearing, tyres, whatever. They'll be working hard to make sure everything's right towards the end of the day. Rob Wilson, he had a 2nd first time out, so he'll be looking to make another good start. But making an excellent start once again is Russelling and Urycz. They've got the lead going into that first bend. Roger Measor and Steve coming out on his old outfit. He's got 2 bikes here of course. Yesterday he practiced on this outfit that he's been using through most of the season. Came out first of all on the new outfit he's been building just recently, but he's come back out on his old outfit this time. Roger Measor going sideways past us is allowed. Ivor Matthews to go through. Steve Dewison, of course, slowing up to avoid Roger Measor there, going sideways near us, and Ivor Matthews has gone through on the inside, taking advantage of that and elevates himself up into 2nd place. Steve Dewison closing on him all the time. 1 more lap to go. Very close to him. Roger Measor behind Rob Wilson at the moment. But as we look to the front, Ivor Matthews is closing down on Russelling. 1 more corner to negotiate for Russelling and for Urycz as they come round off that top end. Ivor Matthews Dowse gets second place. Steve Dewison crosses the line in third, and Rob Wilson, fourth place. Comes to the line in grid one. He's had a second and a fourth. John Halsey a fourth and a fifth. Rob Cameron, of course, he's now seen rustling, get 3 wins under his belt. Rob Cameron sits on 2 at the moment. He's had 2 successful rides so far. Martin Baker and Shaun Cann join them. Paul Pinfold. And as they get underway, we can see that also in this one we've got Darrin Treloar. So we look to see them go into that first corner. It's Rob Cameron that's there once again. Paul Pinfold has gone round the outside of him. It's Rob Cameron and Steve Smith that take the lead. Paul Pinfold in second place. John Halsey and Nevill Penfold fighting it out for third spot at the moment. That's a close battle for third, but equally close is a battle for first place as Paul Pinfold starts to go round the outside. Pinfold then trying to get round the outside of Rob Cameron and Steve Smith, and Cameron really flying this afternoon. Nevill Penfold has made a good move to get round the inside of John Halsey into third place, but still that battle rages for that first place. Rob Cameron and Steve Smith trying to edge their way around that top bend, as you can see, sticking to the racing line right this time. Not leaving too much space for Rob Pinfold, but they've gone wide, and Pinfold knows they're going wide, and Pinfold dives across. In front of Rob Cameron. Rob Cameron locks it up, trying to get the better line around that top bend. But it is Paul Pinfold and Peter Jones that get away from them and go down that backside. Look at the scrap we've got for third, fourth and fifth. Nevill Penfold leading that group of riders. John Halsey trying to go around the outside. Marty Baker like up to the checkered bag goes. It's Paul Pinfold first, checkered bag this afternoon. Rob Cameron takes second place, and who's got the best of that battle for third? Tremendous finish there between all 3 of them. It looked to me like Nevill Penfold, but only just.
Well, that completes the qualifying races for the solos. All 4 legs completed. We now move across to the sidecars, and message repeated from the paddock. There will be the briefest of intervals.
Well, indeed, as you say, all the rides completed for the solo qualifying rides. We now sit down and work out who goes into those A and B finals. Indeed, more importantly, perhaps the big finals. Cameron and Steve Smith, they lead race 26 at the moment, but I say at the moment because Steve Dewison looks to have got the bit between his teeth again. Steve Dewison and Dave Ward go round the outside of Rob Cameron and take over the lead. So Steve Dewison, who's really sitting on the point scoring so far, by my rough calculation. Darrin Treloar, of course, is in this one as well. He missed out completely on his third ride, so he'll be anxious to make up some points. He's still right up there at the top of the point scorers, but he needs to do well in this one. He's third at the moment and going after Cameron again. So Steve Dewison and Dave Ward now getting away from Rob Cameron to pick up their first place perhaps. We see Rob Cameron holding second, Rob Darrin Treloar in third. A great battle going on for that fourth place between Mike Cameron and Alan and John Blewitt. Mike Cameron looks to have got the better of it now to get through into fourth place, but as we look to the far side of the circuit, you can see that Steve Dewison has pulled it out of somewhere because he's now got away from Rob Cameron. And after the disappointing start to the day, that's a great way to get the thing together. Steve Dewison and Dave Ward take the second flag. Rob Cameron and Steve Smith take second. Darrin Treloar and Phil Hudson get third, and Mike Cameron crossing the line in fourth. 22.83. Those numbers again, 26. Race 26 is number 4, 10, 7, 17, 1 and 14. That winning time, 1:22.83. Race 27, we move to the line already. You can see the riders have got themselves to that start line. We see Steve Smith once again, Roger Measor, Paul Pinfold, who come through and won his third ride. So he's right back in there in the point scoring to qualify for that A final. John Halsey, Jerry Adams and John Hiscock. So I think a lot of eyes will be on Paul Pinfold. He's right up there in the points. He picked up maximum points third time out. And I make it, as I say, very unofficially that he's in the top 6 at the moment. That was after, of course, three riders. As we look across that far side, on their old machine again, it's Roger Measor and Steve Bailey that go into that first corner. Paul Pinfold has gone round the outside of the low as they come round. Right there on the inside car with Roger Measor. Into the front and Steve Smith in third place at the moment. Again, Steve Smith has had a bike change. He's out on that new wasp frame, and you can see he's going well with John Halsey on the outside of him in third place. And as we look to the front, I mentioned that Paul Pinfold had a win third time out. He's gone with the power on at the moment. Steve Smith still just hanging on to that third place. The pedigree power of John Halsey not proving to be as successful as we suspected it might have been this morning when we watched him practice. He's fighting in fourth place at the moment to try and get through in front of Steve Smith. John Hiscock coming in contention with him as well. But as we look to see the last lap, goes the lead from Roger Measor, from Steve Smith, from John Halsey and John Hiscock. I said that he was right up there in the point scoring. This I think will mean that Paul Pinfold will make that A final. So he's been a winner of the Aces before. That was right back in 1985. Roger Measor takes second, Steve Smith takes third, John Halsey fourth, and John Hiscock fifth. And Shaun Pittock. The winner's time 1:25.34. Those numbers again, race 27, 8, 5, 2, 11, 18 and 15. The winning time 1:25.34. Well, over the page we go, and you can see you're confronted by a little banner in the middle there that says that there will be an interval. And of course, I think a lot of you have probably appreciated, as indeed the organisers have, we're starting to lose light quite rapidly. So the interval has been effectively cancelled. There will be obviously a very short break there while we sort out the points and the qualifying positions for the finals. But after race 28, this race that's on the line, will be not only working out all those solo points to find who goes in this solo Ace of Aces, it'll then be scribbling away to get the qualifiers for the A and the B final in the sidecars. And as we look to the line, it's race 28. Rustling and Paul Urycz have made another tremendous start. They go into that first turn indeed in front of now Gary right up there as well. He's pumped in behind Gary Moon, comes down in third place. Ivor went a long way round and has got himself just into third place in front of Nevill Penfold going into that pit bend. So a tremendous line-up for race 28 as we look to see it gets closer at the front. Well, this is a test for the final because I think both these two will qualify. That's why I'm going to looking over the results they've had. Rustling has had 3 wins so far. Gary Moon has had 2 wins. Takes over from Rustling going into that pit bend. So the Australian champion showing Rustling that he's got the power to go around the outside of him. Ivor starting to close up on Rustling as well in third place. But it is Rustling that's holding second. Gary Moon now leading. Going for his third win in a row. He missed out on that very first ride this afternoon. So I'd be interested to find out what it was that changed from that first ride to his second and third, because indeed at the moment he is going very, very quickly. Fastest here in practice yesterday on the lap times. Rustling and Paul Urycz looked unbeatable until this race. What a way to go into the final. Gary Moon takes it from Rustling in second, Ivor Matthews in third, Nevill Penfold in fourth, and Martin Baker in fifth place. If we look at the sidecar consolation final, is race 30 in your programme. Well, what a mist of fortunes to see the riders that go in the consolation sidecar final. Steve Smith, effectively his first ride of this year. He's out with a new bike and indeed has got through into the consolation final. I'm sure there were a lot out there hoping to see Steve Smith get into the A final. It wasn't going to be this year. He's in this consolation final. Darrin Treloar, of course, the Australian crew that has won so many Australian championships. They're over here riding Speedway, but have taken to the big grass meetings as well. They go after really one disastrous ride which cost them the qualifying place in the A final. Mike Cameron, again, a similar story really. That first ride where they didn't score any points at all means they've come out into the consolation final. Rob Wilson joins them on the line, and of course Nevill Penfold just missing out on the points there, not getting into that A final. So a tremendous lineup for the consolation final for this year's Ace of Aces. Going down the list as they go across that start line and prepare themselves for this consolation final: Darrin, Treloar and Phil Hudson, Nevill Penfold, Alan Blewitt, Mike Cameron. Oh, again the riders come into line for this consolation final. Anxious throttle hands over there on that far side. You see there's a lot of people wandering about, concerned obviously, perhaps we've dug a few ruts on that start line during the day. The riders making a decision whether to go in them or not. As we get underway with the 1991 consolation final, Nevill Penfold has made a good start, gets himself into the front of the pack as they go into that first corner. He's gone very, very wide down. Darrin Treloar then up into second place, but Nevill Penfold has recovered from going wide on the exit of that first bend, has got himself back in front again as they go round that pit bend and up the back straight into the top corner for the second time, and it's Treloar that's gone after him. Nevill Penfold is very hard. Right in there, up to this. Darrin Treloar second at the moment. Really on that top corner to come through into third place at the moment. Steve Smith moving up in front of Alan Blewitt into fourth. But as we look across that far side, it's the rider from Cann, Nevill Penfold, the youngster that's come through brilliantly this season. He's been in a lot of this, he's been scoring well. He's going well at the moment. Everything else is looks like getting a victory in this consolation final. Riding brilliantly at the moment. Darrin Treloar not being able to close that gap at all, as he now looks to be settled for second place. Rob Wilson up into third, and the gaps are starting to open up as we see them come round off that top bit. It's a great consolation win for Nevill Penfold. Hudson gets second, Rob Wilson and Vince Jones gets third. Alan and John Blewitt just hang on to that fourth place in front of Steve Smith and Keith Wall. As you all know now, and I'm sure have all got 12 in first place there. Nevill Penfold and Tony Miles the winners. In second place, number 7. Of course, Darrin Treloar and Phil Hudson. In third place, number 14, Rob Wilson and Vince Jones. Fourth place, number 1, Alan and John Blewitt. Fifth place, number 2, Steve Smith and Keith Wall. No sixth finisher, the winning time 1:23.52. Those numbers again, 12, 7, 14, 1, 2. And the winning time 1:23.52. So as we see, we're rapidly losing light. They've already got the riders for race 31 on the line. No break for me, it's straight into race 31. This is, of course, the 1991 Ace of Aces Sidecar Final. First man over the line takes the 1991 trophy, and of course that golden engine. So we see out of the lineup who it's going to be. I'm sure you've all got your favourites by now. You've seen how they've gone all afternoon. This is how they qualified to get into the final. Rustling and Paul Urycz come to the line. Gary Moon and Steve Robbins. Rob Cameron and Steve Smith. Ivor Matthews and Mike Dowse. Paul Pinfold and Peter Jones. Steve Dewison and Dave Ward. Oh, we've got a lot of newcomers to this title by the look of it. We've got 4 people that have never won the title before. Paul Pinfold has won it, of course, in 85 and 86. Steve Dewison in 83 and 88. That's how they line up. Will it be one of the 2 experienced, or will it be one of the newcomers? Indeed, of the sporters, Rustling and Paul Urycz make a brilliant start. They've got 4 outfits linked on the rest of the field as they go into that first corner. They really want to start. Now goes round the outside of Rob Cameron. Gary Moon has started to on the inside and tries to get underneath Rob Cameron as Dewison goes round the outside. Ivor Matthews on the back wheel of Gary Moon for 5th and goes through into 4th place. But the challenge for the closing in, they get to the outside of them, looking to go around the outside, perhaps will cut back going into this top bend. Now they're getting close and they're going to the outside, and Jewison's going around the outside of him. There's Steve Jewison and Ivor, the winners in 88 and of course in 83, now get to the front. Even Urycz, of course, put the challenge back on. As you can see, 3rd place, Ivor Matthews and Mike Dowse have gone up there. A great ride from those two this afternoon to get themselves up into 3rd. Rob Cameron and Steve Smith are still in 4th. But as we go into the last bend of the 1991, it's going to be a victory for Steve Jewison and Ivor. Once again, a tremendous return from them. Rattling and Paul Urycz gets 2nd. Ivor Matthews and Mike Dowse get 3rd. But indeed, I think your heart has got to go out to Steve Jewison and Dave Ward. They've been splattered with bad luck this year. They've had accidents, they've had engine problems, and indeed, what a way to come back. They said they loved the Aces. It seemed a long time since they won it. It was only 88, but now they've come back and done it in 1991. As they come round, show them your congratulations. A very deserved win. So indeed, as Steve Jewison and Dave Ward come round, a lot of people obviously pleased with that one. A tremendous ride, and indeed a great victory for Steve Jewison and Dave Ward. Look at the smiles on their faces, they are pleased with that one.